What is up, everyone? JD here. Really excited to get into this review with you today. Let's do it. All right, so we're going to be taking a look at a knife that I actually get to handle at Blade Show Atlanta, but I only got to handle it on the table. I didn't really get to spend a lot of time with it, so I was interested, and I did want to go ahead and pick up my own version of it and kind of give it like a real in-depth review. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're taking a look at the QSP Vault. It is a very interesting model. This is designed by Jacob Lundquist. It is definitely more on the budget end of things. I did decide to go ahead and get the all blacked out one. I tend to avoid coated blades just because it does drop the HRC a little bit because they do have to heat it back up to coat it. And then after the coating on this particular version, they went ahead and did a black wash. It is 14C28N, so I already know that it's not going to be great, or it's not going to be one of the top performers when it comes to edge retention, but it'll still be very tough. I'm okay with that. It's a budget knife, and I've come to understand and accept that's what you get when you have 14C28N. You also have aluminum bolsters. You have micarta handles right here on behind the bolsters, and then you have a reversible steel, bent steel pocket clip here. The only thing that's a little weird is I don't know what it'll look like on the other side. It looks like it's pretty straight, so I'm thinking it'll lay in the exact same spot, but I do like the fact that QSP on this particular version, they decided to go ahead and inset the pocket clip a lot so that the screw doesn't stick out. So you really feel it, but you don't notice that it sticks out when you're just looking dead on to the knife itself. I also like the fact this is the first crossbar lock knife I've ever handled from QSP, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but there's a lot of good here going on with that. But they did these little tabs here that you can kind of pull down on, and they're very comfortable to operate. There's lots to grip onto. Feels very natural to use it. So I do like that a lot. It is thumb studs only, which I like with crossbar lock knives. I prefer thumb studs with crossbar locks over opening holes. Not too many companies do the opening holes really good, but I think this could work because they have that lock face geometry really good here. 14C28N with a very thin blade stock, and it's very thin behind the edge, very slicey. I'm going to talk a little bit about the cutting with this one. So it came with a fantastic factory edge, sliced right through the paper, very impressive. It feels like they laid back this edge nicely, and right behind the edge it's really thin, and you really notice that going through the cardboard. It just ripped through the cardboard with no issues whatsoever. Ergonomically, it was very comfortable to hold. It was pretty comfortable to choke up on, not as much room choking up, but pretty good. And then really able to, with this one, get into that pinch grip and get down onto the table, you know, without having to bend my wrist too much to get to that tip for that particular work. So afterwards, I tested it just to see. It was a little bit of cutting, but I always like to demonstrate this so people understand what I'm saying when I talk about 14C28N. It is a steel that you're going to want to strop after you break down some boxes, and that'll keep the edge going. It'll be a really sharp, fine edge, but you do need to strop it up. As you saw, it had like a little blemish after that little bit of cardboard cutting, but I was able to strop it out super easy, guys. Able to run it back through the paper after that, and you could just tell that it was ready to go. But, you know, very comfortable. My favorite grip is right here, choked back. It's just barely 4 fingers, but it is 4 fingers that I'm able to easily hold onto. And then again, as I mentioned, it is like a trigger pull position here, and then it doesn't have jimping all the way out, but that flat spot works good enough, and I can get to that tip if I need to. And then same thing here, just kind of indexing here and here on the knife. Very easy to just go to the side a little bit so that it's on the side of the palm, and then go across the top of the table to do those detailed cuts. The action on here is super smooth. It is riding on stamped bearings, and my oh my, did they do a fantastic job with the geometry on this one here. I'm going to do my best to explain what I'm saying when I talk about the lock face geometry. So when you look straight down onto the knife here, you can see it is more up and down that the cutout for the lock bar in the closed position is, whereas most knives will take it and they'll kind of lay it back a little bit like that, so it's easier for it to overcome. When you look at this knife in the open position, you can see that it is fully locked out. And then in the closed position, and I'll demonstrate that without really moving the knife too much. So you'll see, oops, slipped out of my hand a little bit. It's pushed all the way back. You can see through the hole a little bit there, my finger behind it. And then when you close this one, it's all the way fully locked back again. What's happening is, in order to overcome, I almost lost it there. In order to overcome the lock face geometry here, what it's having to do is push the lock bar all the way back. You see how much it's moving? It's pushing it all the way back in order to overcome that lock face interface. So when you're pulling it, it is fully opening it, keeping it fully opened, and then fully closing. And that to me is the best way to do it. The clutch lock is one of the best. This is by far the best I've ever felt. It's crazy how good this is. And then the CJRBs, the Prado, and the Hector, those were done very well also, and I noticed the same thing on those. That lock face geometry is more up and down, and your lock is completely moving when you're actuating, when you're disengaging and engaging. Before I jump into my final thoughts and impressions, let's do some size comparisons to give you an idea just how big or small the knife is, and then we'll check weight, and then we'll give you my final score on this one. All right, so we got a couple of size comparisons on the table. The lightweights, we have the Para 3 and the Manix 2. And as you can see, this is a little bit bigger than your Para 3 lightweight and a little bit smaller than your Manix 2 lightweight. So it's definitely in that bug out territory. The Para 3 is kind of the same size with the bug out, and the fact that you got very similar handle length, but you got a little bit more blade going on with the Vault. Let's do a couple more. All right, so this one to me is very comparable to the Kaiser Mini Grouper and a little bit bigger than the Vosteed Hedgehog. Again, just something that I would say that does allow for a full grip, even though for me it's just barely, but I do have very large hands. Again, let's do some size comparisons. I'm going to use the slightly smaller Spyderco Para 3 lightweight, and we're going to go ahead and keep the Mini Grouper out here, and we're going to do closed comparison first so you can see how it looks closed up, how deep it'll carry in the pocket. So very shallow, even though it has the deepest clip and rides the deepest out of all the ones on the table here. And then it is by far the thinnest of the knives on the table. And these have slightly contoured scales on them, but even with those slightly contoured scales, it matches the thickness of the Para 3 lightweight with the flat scales. And then I have found that it is the same with the Mini Grouper. So same thickness, the contouring on here just gives it a very different feel in the hand. Let's grab the scale and just check the weight on all of this. All right, so full steel liners, micarta aluminum bolsters here, and all steel hardware. I'm thinking this is going to be about 4 ounces, so coming in at 4.1 ounces. So it is a little bit heavier, which tends to happen with crossbar locks when they have those full steel liners. So I'm not too terribly surprised by that. All right, let's go ahead and wrap up with the final score. Okay guys, so final scores are a little new to the channel still, so I'm just going to kind of run through these for a little while to explain to you what I use to surmise a final score. So final score for me is going to be ergos, how the lock system is working or the lock mechanism is working, factory edge, blade steel, materials at this price point, cutting performance, and perceived value. So for me, there's a little bit going on that I want to explain. I have a cap for budget knives. Budget knives max out on a scale of 1 to 10 at 7, with 7 being absolute perfection, the best that it absolutely can be with a budget knife under $100. I leave the 7 to the 10 territory for everything above, so more exotic steels, more exotic materials, and still allowing for performance. So, 14C 28N, is going to be a very low score because it doesn't have good edge retention. Even though it is tough, it can be brought back to razor sharp fairly easy without taking a bunch of steel away, but it does require more regular maintenance with harder use. All right, getting into that again, action, cutting performance, ergos, materials, and perceived value. For me, I am giving the QSP Vault a very strong 6.8. What holds it back for me a little bit is going to be the weight of the knife itself. It is fairly heavy, and it is noticeable in that regard. What could they do a little bit different? You know, they have the weight relief going all the way up into right where the bolster hole is, so that it prevents them from doing that. The other thing that they could probably do here is they probably could just have the steel coming to about here inside, and then just have the rest be a thicker micarta going up to a backspacer, and maybe having this G10 backspacer go all the way up to where that's going to stop with the steel, so you still have that strength. The other thing for me here that does hold it back a little bit is I love the pocket clip on this one, but this pocket clip, and it will break in, but it is a little strong. It does catch the pocket okay, but I've noticed I got to push and the material binds up a little bit, and then coming out, you got to kind of pull, and if the material binds up and it kind of is a little rough and you pulling your shorts or your jeans up with you as you're kind of pulling it out of the pocket. And those are minor things. That's why it does rank out at a 6.8. The positive here is ergonomically, it's very comfortable, guys. Very comfortable. I would have loved just a little bit more room up here in front for choking up. I would have loved to have been able to get into a full trigger position personally without having the blade's edge touch. So just, a little bit further out, not much. You're talking, a nano amount of steel being taken out for that. Having said that, it does work really good. I can get it into that pinch grip just fine. No issues whatsoever. Also for me, 14C28N, I'd love to see 154cm at this price point. If this would have been $65 to $69, I think it would have been good. Having said that, this is closer to $80. I would have said just make it 80, $79.99, and throw 154cm on here. I think that would have been really awesome. Cosmetically, it's a nice looking profile, a very nice looking knife. I love the raw aluminum or stonewashed aluminum with the blue and the green and the brown micartas that they did here. That was really nice. I also, at this price point, would have loved to have seen micarta on the backspacer or aluminum instead of G10. The only reason I say that is because of the fact that I do understand that pocket clip screwing into that G10 is what is preventing them from going with full micarta here because of the way the pocket clip is mounted. The adverse of that is you could have just had the through bolt and had it kind of hang. I have a Real Steel Serenity over here that does that, and what it does is it creates the extra fold, and it has little pockets that you can push it down into, and then you just screw the opposite direction to get that in there. Even if it was hidden underneath the bolster here, I think that would have been a little bit of an improvement. Again, minor things. Overall, it came with fantastic cutting geometry, fantastic edge, great ergos. They did a heck of a job with the detent feel because they got that lock geometry done so well, and this is one of the best crossbar lock studs that I've ever encountered. I think the closest I have seen to this is the one that you see from Kunwu that are a little ramped. I like those too because those ramps do keep you from sliding, but these are so well jumped that you can just very easily pull back on those, no issues whatsoever. So overall score for me, 7.8, very easy recommendation. Sorry, 6.8. Very easy recommendation. I really love this model. I'm going to be hanging on to it for a little while. It is one of my favorites. It's actually my second favorite behind the Mini Grouper. I love the Mini Grouper 14C28N Nitro V, very comparable. You can get it all blacked out with G10 if you don't like the way that the G10 with the laminate carbon fiber on top feels, but it is twilled, and that does allow for a little bit of texturing and grip. So I really do love these two. Right now, these are my top 2 budget knives, and I have a feeling when we get to the end of the year, which is not that far away, scary enough, these are probably going to be in the conversation for my top budget knives at the end of the year that I'm gonna have to narrow it down to, and it would be tough to pick right now. Let me know what you think about the Volt. This video is about the Volt, so we're gonna move my grouper out of the way. I really like this one a lot. Does anybody have it? Are you going to be getting it? Are you thinking about getting it? Let me know down in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video on your way out, go ahead and hit that like for me. I would love for that. It would help the channel. And a special thank you to my channel members. I love you guys. If you're not subscribed, consider subscribing. And don't forget, those links are down in the description below. I love you all. Hope you have a fantastic week. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.